We see the way things are within an industry and we think, oh, that's just the way it is. It is our responsibility to think of new ways.
Being green is about being responsible, being smart, and if done well, can also save money.
Sustainability is a health and safety issue.
Preserving our humanity as we make something translates over to preserving the environment and the environments we are in.
Hello, and welcome to Green Producers, the Future of Filmmaking. I'm Smiely Khurana, and today I will be guiding you through a conversation all about sustainable filmmaking, where we are, where we're headed, and how we as emerging filmmakers can help lead the way. Sustainability in film is no longer just a niche conversation. It's a necessity. Today, we're bringing you a lineup of producers who are not just making films, but paving the path for green filmmaking. This discussion is part of a new resource called Emerging Producers Guide, created by Producing for the Planet. Let's dive in and meet our panelists.
My name's Chris. I have been a producer, publicist, and director out of Vancouver, Canada for about 15 years now. And my role has taken me everywhere from TV commercials around British Columbia to union feature films, TV shows, and more recently, independent documentaries, where I've sort of spearheaded my own and really dived into that world of sustainability.
My name is Alyssa. I am a producer, a writer, an actor. I've worked on primarily short films. I think people most know me for my first short film, Zero, which was carbon neutral and almost completely zero waste.
My name is Jamie Lee Giannopoulos, and I'm a director, producer, and editor based in Vancouver. I'm very passionate about using filmmaking as a tool for healing. I created a film called What About Our Future, which I shadowed for a year, the youth climate movement. And I've just been finishing up a festival run with Our Grandmother, the Inlet. My other film, Ask the Plantain. I've really been exploring this idea of not belonging to the lands that you were born on and also not belonging where your ancestors came from. So I'm really excited to be here and thank you for having me.
Thank you to all of you for being willing to come chat with us today and for your incredible leadership. Does green production matter for emerging, pre-emerging, and low-budget producers?
No matter what level you're at, I believe it's important, and starting right from the beginning is the best time to do it because you're owning all of your skills as a filmmaker. So the earlier you start working on that, the stronger your skill set is going to be when you end up with bigger budgets, if that's your goal.
Green productions definitely matter for low budget filmmakers, and not just for ethical reasons either. There's also the selfish reason. Sustainability is often cheaper or can save money. I've seen productions slash transport costs by just planning routes better. Catering costs drop when you reduce waste. And even just powering a set more efficiently also means different rental expenses. Cutting single-use plastics saves money, right? And so thinking about being green isn't just about the ethical reasons, but those are huge and important. But it's also about being responsible, being smart, and if done well, can also save money.
Also, oftentimes we kind of see the way things are within an industry and we think, oh, that's just the way it is. And it doesn't have to be like that. In order to be a leader or to step into your gifts or your power as a creator, you can really have the ability to shape and help direct where an industry goes. So oftentimes we'll, just go with the flow of, oh, this is the protocol, this is how it's done. But a lot of things in our world, the way they're done are not aligned for the betterment of most people. So I think in order to help be part of changing that, it is our responsibility to think of new ways. And just the same way that we're creative with a film project and we have these ideas, it's like, how could we be creative to actually have the way we produce reflect the values that we hold personally and collectively?
Jamie, I think you're absolutely right. I think being an independent or smaller filmmaker, you've got that benefit of being agile, right? Smaller crews, less transport, and being agile also gives you the opportunity to sort of find new ways to do things, right? As you said, those big budget sort of productions have their system, and it's this clockwork system that's just always being done in a certain way. Being agile, being emerging gives you that chance to sort of do new things.
there's definitely an advantage to being emerging or low budget. I think Chris made some great points about not only ethical reasons, but you end up saving a lot of costs. It becomes a little bit easier. I guess my next question is a little bit about like how do you get started? Like what can filmmakers start thinking about when they go to develop their projects or go to prep mode for their film in order for it to be like sustainable but also more efficient.
I feel like it's constantly a learning process, so I don't really have a specific answer for what to do, but something that I've been reflecting a lot in relation to this is just around time and well-being, because I think a lot of the times the way a production is set up, it drains you so much, like you have to kind of kill yourself to get it done. And I feel that a really big part of this is also connected to how we treat ourselves and how we take care of the well-being of others while we're making something. So I think that this is something I'm just experimenting with right now, but the more that I use my time smarter and more efficiently versus dragging things out and doing things in a way that maybe I feel we have to do it that way because that's just the way it's done. There's something in that process where I find I can get a lot more done in a shorter amount of time. Preserving our humanity as we make something, I think, translates over to preserving the environment and the environments we are in too.
That's a good point. When you're starting out, especially as an emerging filmmaker, you're already juggling so much, from learning tax credits to logistics to you just hiring your crew to get your actual project off the ground. Adding sustainability to that mix can sort of feel overwhelming, especially since it's optional, right? Every filmmaker, especially in the world of documentaries, is driven by their values. And if sustainability is one of yours, start small, right? Every small step adds up. Maybe it's as simple as going digital for your first film, right? Start small, each production, do something a little different. Also make it easy on the crew. Instead of telling your crew to be sustainable, give them the tools, right? Provide them water refill stations, reusable dishware. Are you looking for a crew gift? Give them a reusable mug, right? By providing the crew the sort of tools and also setting the tone, you sort of weave it in. And you're also showing them what matters to you, right? What your values are and why you're doing this. As production managers, producers, directors, we're working with the crew and trying to lead them in ways more than just in the creative way.
Being an emerging or younger filmmaker, oftentimes people feel like they don't have a voice. And so you may be that like very passionate steward that wants to implement sustainability, but you may not have the support or voice to do so. That whole point of like sort of guiding different generations together through this, it really inspired this next question about how do we change the culture of um, being more open and listening to emerging folks as well that may have great ideas.
I personally think that, first of all, just the awareness of how important intergenerational connections are. Like we all learn from each other. And I learned that through, with our grandmother, the Inlet, I got to mentor Kaya, who's in the film, and it was her first time ever directing. And so I had the opportunity to mentor her so she also could tell her own story. And it was an incredible learning experience for both of us. It was an equal exchange. I might have had a little bit more knowledge in terms of like how to make the film and things I could pass on, but she had so much to teach me. And I found that even with What About Our Future, but the youth climate strikes, going into that experience, it was really cool to shoot in a verite style and actually just be silent for a year. And that, I think, was one of the biggest growths that I've had in learning in years. And it was just by observing and listening. And I can remember at the very beginning of the production, I'd have like a coffee mug that wasn't reusable. And I was like, oh no, the kids are going to see me with this. Like, I'm this bad person now. Like, I'm not sustainable. And then I remember they like laughed at me one time. They're like, this is like way bigger than that, right? Like, this is systematic. It really helped me also to kind of like let go of this guilt of having to be like this perfect person who just has it all together. And I'm this absolutely like sustainable. I'm like, no, I'm not, you know what I mean? There's a lot of ways that I live my life that is not sustainable at all. And what I feel like we're working towards is trying to align our values with our action. That I think requires these types of connections where the younger generation can teach us and show us from their heart and their minds. And then the older generations can also pass down the wisdom. It feels like that kind of reciprocal relating with one another, we find those creative solutions. So that's, yeah, where my mind goes with it. But I'd love to hear from both of you as well.
Love a lot of what you're saying, and I relate to it. I think that film could be less hierarchical and looking at, everyone has their things that they're in charge of on a set, but how can we work more collectively and consciously and less, I'm the boss and I tell you what to do and I make the most money and that sort of thing. So yeah, slowing down, being more conscious, working together, and seeing each other more as equals. And we all play an important part in this project that we're building.
Sustainability is a buzzword that lacks a universal definition. It can be anything from carbon neutrality to ethical labor to waste. But I think regardless, it starts with conversations. It starts with people being open, being honest, being willing to learn from one another, as Jamie said, from the youth, from elders, right? Everyone can learn something from each other. And it really starts with that opportunity of just being open to trying new ways and seeing if each step along the way we can improve and iterate. Every small step counts, right? Start with something easy. Start with refillable water stations. Start with paper free. And each time do something a little bit more and work towards whatever your definition of sustainability is.
Even just like on the simple kind of notion of like what we're doing, does that action, is it taking and extracting? And if so, what are the implications of that? And then how do we sort of shift into more of an offering or doing something in a way that's actually going to cycle back, that doesn't leave things worse than when we found it. So just, like kind of observing our practical actions and seeing how it relates to that concept or that shift in perspective.
Yeah, I love that and I agree. And I also want to throw it out to the group. In your experience, what are some of those biggest like challenges when you want to produce a film without a carbon footprint? Because realistically, it's quite impossible to make anything or produce anything that does not have a footprint. But what are your barriers or challenges that you personally find when you're trying to adopt more sustainable practices on set?
My first thought is a project I worked on that was, I guess it technically fell into indie, but it was a Netflix production. And it was the first time I had worked on a large production like that. And I was sustainability coordinator, but they brought me on less than a month before filming. And that is my first thought, is when you are kind of late to the game and they've been developing things for quite a while before you're joining, it's very challenging to get the ball running or have people listen to you, especially when you're working with people who've been doing it longer than you. I do think it's challenging sometimes for, some people do have a bit of an ego and they come with knowledge and they think they know better, and, sometimes they might. But when you come in with your skill set and knowledge and no one's listening to you, that can be challenging, which is why I like smaller indie productions, because you can really choose the people that you're working with and, be more intentional with with that.
I have a question for you on that. How did it feel going into that with only a month before production and having to try and fix it all?
Both exciting and scary. Yeah, there were things that were really exciting and fun. There was a lot of learning lessons. Yeah, it was challenging. It was very fulfilling by the end of it, but there was a point where I felt like giving up. So,
do you feel like you were equipped with either the tools or resources to make the decisions necessary and to actually affect change?
what was interesting is that I had support on like the corporate Netflix side, but then that didn't seem to come together with the local production team. So I'd be encouraged by Netflix to make certain changes, and then the production manager would say, no, I don't have money to do that. So there was so many people involved, it was a bit confusing in that way. So I did have support, but also didn't.
That's a really great point you bring up, because I have personal experience with that too, and I've also been talking to filmmakers as well that now it's becoming more of a norm to have like these expectations from funders, from broadcasters, from whoever that is supporting that project, to have like a sustainability plan in process. And usually now, especially in Canada, if you're submitting a grant proposal, you're kind of expected to also submit a sustainability plan. But by the time it trickles down to those that are coordinating on the production, how much of it is actually being implemented and who's calling the shots then? I think that's a very valid challenge that you just brought up, and something that I guess it's a good thing to put out for those that are producing their next films to really take accountability for these commitments that are being shared.
It really reminds me of just the idea that there's also so many, I feel like corporate initiatives or certain things where people just want to check off a box, like, oh, we've done the justice thing, we've done the climate thing, and they just, have this, they use all the words, and then when it comes down to the action, it's not really happening. So I think too, I don't have any answers for this, but a question I'm asking is, how do we actually embody it? How do we actually do it in a way that is beneficial and it's not just another, check off of a box?
Yeah, Jamie, I think you're right. Too often sustainability is reduced to a marketing tool rather than a real commitment. And there's this false sense of progress that sort of allows industry and business to continue without really moving the needle. And so I think as project managers, as producers, as indie filmmakers, you need to ask yourself, are we actually reducing harm or are we just making it look better on paper?
Exactly. Yeah. Are we just making ourselves feel better about everything, or are we truly contributing to change? I like that, Chris. Yeah.
I'd like to add as well that a challenge can be the community you're filming in. Vancouver is an amazing city to go green in on your production because the city itself has so many supports and systems in place, like compost, grid tie-ins if you're filming outside, and that sort of thing. And that's not to say that Vancouver can't get better, but every city or municipality has different systems in place. And depending on the community you're filming in and what they have in place, that can make it harder to do certain things.
Yeah, Alyssa, I worked on a project that was filmed in the back country, and I think we had a little over 30 helicopter flights of crew and gear back and forth. And the carbon footprint on helicopters is gigantic. There was a lot that sort of went into figuring out what are the most efficient routes, timing of crew and gear, maximizing loads. And ultimately, we ended up selecting a heli company that was also going carbon neutral. And, a lot of that was dealing with offsets. Don't get me started on offsets. I have a lot of opinions on those. We can talk about that if you want to. But you're right. It's not always easy. Vancouver, definitely easy. As soon as you go outside of Vancouver, or if you're in specific types of filming environments, like in the backcountry, and how do you get film gear and equipment in and out, sometimes it's just inevitable. And you sort of have to work with the challenges of where you're filming and what's available.
And Chris, in that process, when you were trying to select which heli company to go with, did you have a lot of support to be able to choose a company that was also working with values aligned with you? Or did you have any pushback there, and especially related to like budget and whatnot? Like, how did you kind of get the support to do that?
Yep. Everyone was totally on board just to select the best company for the job. And that was one of the choices, is who's willing to work with us to sort of make it as eco-friendly as possible. You can call flying a helicopter eco-friendly. The company has since, and I was part of their launch, gone carbon neutral. And so from power grids at their remote lodges to everything, they've gone carbon neutral across their entire operation.
It just got me thinking, like perhaps another challenge that like kind of seems to be a common theme is time, or maybe lack of time. Or Chris, you put in the time to find that other company that could provide a better solution. Would you agree that time might be a challenge that people may, or sort of this reason for not maybe adopting sustainability because they didn't put in the time to, and Alyssa, you brought up time being an issue when you came on to that production just before it was starting to film. Would you say that is a challenge as well? And how do we find a solution for that?
I think time is absolutely an issue. As filmmakers, especially emerging filmmakers, you're learning so much, and you're already running, you're hitting the ground running, trying to figure it out as you go. And going carbon neutral or being sustainable is just one extra thing added to your plate. But as with anything, you let your values drive you. And if sustainability is a value of yours, you find a way to make the time. I think for me, it's often working very late at night, just putting in the hours and doing the research. And yeah, it's not ideal. And back to Jamie's point about sort of your own health and well-being, I think it's just a matter of time until the industry catches up. But starting with what your values are and making sure that you plan around that is important. If that means delegating other tasks to other people or delegating sustainability to a sustainability coordinator to help you in that process, I think really finding a way to do the production in a way that matters to you is so important.
Yeah, and I think, time being a challenge, that's what's great about indie filmmaking is you have the freedom to give yourself your own timeline. There might be things that get in the way, like access to a location, but that's something I've been consciously working a lot more on the past few years. And this next film that I'm making, we started planning in August, and now we're filming in March. And maybe I could have done it faster, and the director wanted to do it faster, but I encouraged and pushed forward taking more time just to make sure everything is in place.
The time that you're putting into sort of researching other methods, other, better solutions and what's out there. Also, like having an understanding of what tools exist that are going to help support you and streamline that process is really, I think, helps save time as well. And I just want to plug the emerging producers guide and this whole video, and and the guide that's coming out it's to help filmmakers just have a quick, easy go-to guide, what they can do, where they can access support, vendors, tools. It's to make it easier so that you're not working late nights or just not doing it because you don't have the time. So yeah, I just really want to emphasize that is a challenge. It's very valid, but there's now tools coming out that are trying to help save you that time and hopefully make it easier for anyone to adopt these practices. I also want to go back to a point that was made regarding the infrastructure available, maybe the city, the municipality that you're in. Alyssa, you made a really great point that is also another valid challenge that people might encounter, that they may not have the luxury of accessible tech or a supportive, sort of system set up in your city. I think it's really important to voice your opinions, share it with your local cities, local vendors. I think it never hurts for I think, again, another challenge of more emerging folks is that, again, back to that point of not having a voice or not feeling like you have that voice. I definitely want to emphasize that you should absolutely voice your opinion. If there's something that's not there or you want to see change, bring it up to your local municipality, your vendors, production companies, broadcasters. That's how we're seeing this transformation in our industry, because a handful of people started talking about the importance of environmental sustainability, and now we're all doing it or having to do it. So definitely voice your opinions if something is missing in where you are filming.
And I think just the reminder that no one is coming to save you. No one is coming to give you your voice. Like you are the one who has to step forward and own your own voice and see those holes or those areas and then put it where it's needed. So I think that's something I did for a while was I was like, oh, why isn't anyone coming to give me my voice? And it's like, no, you own your voice, you know? And so I think that's also part of the responsibility of doing this, that if you step forward and own something, like there's a responsibility to maintain it. And that is part of having a voice.
Have you worked on a project where sustainability was a key theme on screen?
A couple years ago, I directed a short documentary called Community for the Wild, which was a documentary about BC's largest collaborative wildlife research project. It followed over 300 volunteers, multiple First Nation groups, and top researchers trying to understand why mule deer populations are in decline. Seeing people from different backgrounds align on a single goal to restore the ecosystem was so inspiring. It was that kind of energy that we need in film production too. I embraced the values of the research project and made the production entirely carbon neutral as well. It was, of course, much easier having smaller, more agile crews, things like carpooling, going paperless, and at the very end, obviously offsetting too. But I think there are lots of ways to sort of tell these stories. People are overwhelmed by doom and gloom, climate news, right? But we've seen that conservation works. Ecosystems recover, species can and do bounce back. And I think there's a critical piece in shifting the dominant environmental narrative beyond doom and gloom to connecting people with these scientific, authentic examples of successful conservation. And when we tell those success stories, we can replace that despair, that doom and gloom with hope, and hope drives action. If people believe that change is possible, they're more likely to participate in it. And I think for me, that's one of the things that's driven me more recently into a lot of the projects I do. I'm working right now with the Stoney Nakoda Nation on the reintroduction of Plains bison to Banff National Park. And I just finished a project, and it's going to continue over the next couple of years with the Okanagan Nation on the reintroduction of grizzly bears to the Cascade Mountains. And it's these examples of successful conservation that I think start to drive hope and show people that change is possible. And if we embrace sustainability, things can change.
Have you read the book Hope Matters?
I should, I should say yes, but the truth is no. No, I have not.
Okay, so yes, I was like wanting to, snap and be like, yes, as you were talking. I'm more on the fiction side of things, but I very much echo everything you've been saying. There was a book that I read during the pandemic called Hope Matters. The author is Ellen Kelsey, and that's everything she says in the book. Her focus is as a scientist, but there's a little portion of the book that also talks about storytelling. So, as someone who's been passionate about climate change issues, I really started to look at the stories I was telling and how I could shift gears and make sure that the stories are more hopeful. The first film that I made is about a zero waste serial killer. I wanted to do it zero waste as well. I don't know if you would say that story is hopeful or not. It's been something in my mind. I've worked on a lot of projects since that are not my own projects. So I would say they maybe had a little less climate story in them, but everything I've been working on and applying for grants for is very heavily hopeful climate stories.
I love that. That's really nice. And I'd love to read that book. That sounds incredible. Yeah, it reminds me as well of an author. I don't know if any of you have read it, but it's called Breeding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. It's one of my favorite books. I love that book so much. And just recently in November, got to see her at a live talk at UBC. And Chris, it was reminding me a lot of what you were saying as well with she really was talking in that about restoration and how important it is, and really bringing that Indigenous knowledge and science together and finding those bridges of how we work between those two worlds and also the overlaps of that. And it reminds me of a part in the book where she was talking about how they did an experiment where they were growing sweetgrass, I think, in 3 different areas. One, they would over harvest and take as much as they wanted at any time. One where they completely ignored the sweetgrass, and then another area where they would approach it, speak with it, build a relationship with it, make offerings to it, and harvest what was needed, but not too much. And how that third way of relating to the plant actually made the plant thrive the most. The worst was even when it was completely ignored. And I think that it was a really excellent point that she made in the book, where oftentimes within this, we kind of can adopt these notions that we're so bad as humans because everything that we did, we should just go away and leave everything. And actually, it seems that nature does thrive when we interact with it, but in a way that is respectful and in a way that has awareness of how much we're taking. And I feel like that's so much of so many different Indigenous nations of people that I've met. It's such unique cultures and unique languages and ways of perceiving, but at the same time, there seems to be a common thread of having that reciprocity. And I think that's what I really feel with our film, Our Grandmother, the Inlet, that we got to do. When I was making that film, it's like, that was a relationship over 7 years through ceremony. So it's like those were people that for me are like family. So making that film is a lot different experience than just showing up and wanting to take something just for your own benefit. It's like really working in relation. And I think that climate story, like our main intention when making that, kind of circling back to what you were saying, Chris, about the doom and gloom, we were thinking like one of the main reasons we feel like so many people that are our friends don't really care is they don't actually know what it feels like to be connected to the land. Like it's easy not to care when you can't really feel it. And so we were thinking the whole time, how do we create an emotional experience where you actually feel the same way you'd feel that love for your grandmother? How do you feel that love for the earth? Because we protect what we love. And if we feel disconnected from what we love, why are we going to protect it? It's easier just to avoid or do our own thing. So anyways, all those thoughts kind of coming up from both you, Alyssa, and Krista. Thank you.
I think you're right. People do protect what they love. And I think people need to get outside more. People need to get into the backcountry, observe nature, just sit with it. And you start to realize what you're trying to protect.
Those are really beautiful reflections and a lot of, I think, intersectional themes, like you all mentioned, very different, but all sort of connected in terms of storytelling and meaning and intention. So I really appreciate everything that everyone's had to share. What are some examples of films that have successfully integrated environmental themes on screen? Is there any that you could point to?
I've been watching a lot more TV than movies recently, and in terms of fictional stories, a couple things that come to my mind. It's a few years old now, but The Politician. It really develops a big climate story. And I'm also a huge advocate for, even if the story doesn't center around sustainability, what are the daily habits that the characters are doing? Anytime I'm watching TV or a movie, I will pause it and get excited if somebody is using a sustainable product. I was focusing a lot on teen shows for a while, so those are my 2 examples right now. The other one is, oh no, I'm blanking on the name of it. 13 Reasons Why. So not in the story, but in the practices, they constantly and subtly had things like green products or not just in environmental sustainability, but a teen boy bringing vegetables for lunch and eating it out of a not plastic container. asking for consent to hug somebody who's going through something. So those are two examples that came to my mind immediately.
I love that because I feel like those are great examples of one being it's like in the storylines advocating for like the climate goals and stuff. And then the other example, it was like kind of integrated but not on the nose. So I feel like those are really great examples. Thanks, Alyssa.
I'm going to take us back a bit here. Wall-E. Wall-E, right? The classic Pixar film, dystopian future caused by consumerism, right? Or, of course, the Lorax based on Dr. Seuss, right?
Oh, another old one is Fern Gully.
I was just gonna say that too. My favorite childhood movie. I love that you said that.
There's another movie that I don't even want to say out loud because it's not hopeful at all, but Don't Look Up. I was so irritated by that movie because it was just another movie of, oh, if we don't change something, we're all going to die. And that doesn't make you feel good or like you can do anything about it.
Don't Look Up did use, they were carbon neutral in their production.
And The Hottest August is one of my favorite kind of climate documentaries that does it. It's Canadian director Brett Story, but she does it in a very subtle, interesting way, spending a month in New York City, interviewing people about if they feel that there's hope for the future. And it really goes into this interweaving kind of reflection, collective reflection on climate. And sustainability, but in a very different way. I love that film. It's one of my favorite documentaries.
Documentary wise, I might be getting the title wrong, but 40 or 40 years? Don't know if I'm getting that right, but that one I also thought was interesting. I mean, you could maybe critique it, but looking ahead at, using solutions that are already in place, if we actually implement them, this is what life could look like.
What are the top 3 most important things to know about green production?
You can't rush it.
Melissa, that's just one thing.
We can do top 3.
I'm
Everyone
joking.
give one thing.
I'm just bugging. But yeah, Alyssa, what do you think the sort of, top 3 things people should know about green production?
Well, I only had the one off the top of my head, so I thought I'd think of other ones while you guys spoke.
So centering our values and understanding how those values can translate to practical action.
So Jamie, I'm going to build off of your values one and go on the opposite end of the spectrum. Carbon offsetting isn't a fix. It's a band-aid, in my opinion, and reducing impact is better than paying to erase it. I think that's one of the top things I think people should know. Often people do this carbon offsetting as a way to go carbon neutral, and they think they've fixed it and they've been sustainable, but really reducing impact is the first thing you should be trying to do. Second, and I mentioned it a bit earlier, sustainability can actually save money, right? Cutting waste, reducing fuel, planning efficiently can result in lower costs. And I think third, start small, but start now, right? The best time to build sustainable habits is when you're still shaping your production style. Start small. Anything you can do, just do it.
Can you maybe go into a little like telling us about maybe a formative experience that you had that has impacted how you think about or enact climate action as a producer?
I remember years ago when I was working as a coordinator on a feature film, I was in charge of travel. So booking flights for, cast, crew, producers. And over the course of the film, I booked over 300 flights. And for the first time, I was seeing CO2 emissions listed on each of those bookings. And that was kind of a wake-up call, really, to sure, I had seen waste on sets for years, but this was different. Seeing that number across 300 flights in a single film was just astronomical. And it was this sort of moment of realization of just how massive our industry's footprint is. And I wanted to be part of the change.
Sustainability is a health and safety issue. And, for larger productions, when you get into, all the training that you have to do, I think that should have the same level of importance. Not using generators means we're all breathing cleaner air and it has to be at the first conversation, like right from the beginning. So it gives you that time to take it into consideration. I mean, I know sometimes with indie filmmaking, you're working with less people, so you're doing more than one job. But if it's possible to have someone who can focus on sustainability, I think that's helpful as well. And when I'm extra limited, my first go-to is the easiest thing is how can I limit plastic on set? That's my first thought. To me, that's the easiest. Like Chris said, water refill stations, no bottled water. Like that's my first go-to is how can I get rid of plastic on set? Then where can I expand from?
Yeah, and I think by really being true to the stories that you want to tell and also creating space for filmmakers and being part of storytelling of perspectives that help shift our perspective of seeing everything as an object that we can extract and gain for ourselves, and rather how did other cultures, other people perceive the environment and each other. And I think that more stories that help us to shift our mindset or help us unlearn these colonial ways is really going to help to contribute to our understanding of what sustainability means from a root level. So we're not just doing the band-aid actions like you mentioned, Chris, and we're really actually getting to the root of where is that and how do we go in that together.
I think one thing on that, Jamie, is a lot of people can feel stressed or anxious or frightened that because it's such a big topic that they have to do it perfectly or they have to do it all at once. Sustainability, I don't think, is about perfection. It's like it's like setting a fitness goal, right? Focus on consistent, intentional progress. So start where you are, wherever that is, that's fine. And build from there each time, adding a little bit more, you know?
Yeah, department by department. You could choose one project where, hey, I want to focus on getting this department as far as it can go in sustainability. I also want to add, whoever is watching this is already doing it, but learn. There's so many resources and opportunities for, I mean, emerging doesn't mean that you're young, but there's lots of opportunities for emerging filmmakers, for young people interested in sustainability leadership. That's something that I had done outside of filmmaking. I did youth sustainability leadership workshops and programs, and then took that learning into my filmmaking.
I love that. Alyssa, you stole my idea because that's what I was gonna say too. Leveraging tools that exist to help you like just make it easier for you. So you're not, even if you don't have the time to put into like learn or take a course or there's already a lot of guides, for example, this video and the Emerging Producers Guide that is coming out along this video. So definitely leverage those tools that are there to help support you. We often don't talk about also taking care of ourselves and the crew and well-being and how sustainability plays a part in that. And so, any sort of like experiences or examples that anyone can share regarding how going sustainable on set also contributed to like the well-being of, your crew as well as the values that you're instilling?
Taking sustainability into account for me automatically makes me slow down. I do think that we are stuck in a hustle cycle. And so I've been trying to slow down as a filmmaker. And I think sustainability goes hand in hand with that. You can't rush that. You have to be conscious. And you can't be conscious if you're, spinning a million miles a minute.
Yeah, something that comes to mind. So for our grandmother, the inlet, because as well we were working with an elder, so there was a lot more care that was required in order to, honor her time and her being there. The meeting at the beginning of the day, oftentimes it'll be a safety meeting or some sort of. So I like to we actually would begin with a prayer. And our intention of why we're there, what we're doing. And then we also would, in that moment, sort of lay out the values of our set and the parameters of how we wanted to relate with one another. And I think that that really contributed to creating a really special environment that created a different type of safety. I did find on our grandmother, the inlet, that starting the days that way really created this type of community experience where people did feel taken care of. And it was really cute. We had this one scene where we had to get the grandmother down this long path, and it was supposed to be like a sunny, great day, and it was going to be really easy. And we were on this nature reserve, and we were working directly with them, and the mud was up to our knees, and it was really intense and very hard. So in a way, we thought we were going to lose this scene because we didn't want the elder to feel bad. But what happened was we all came together. We like built this throne basically of blankets inside of a wheelbarrow, and we just all came together. And I remember like we were all pushing her down the path, getting her out there. And then on the fire, we had like clams, and we had like berries and all these things, and 4 people had umbrellas over her, and we all just really took care of her. And she was like a little kid in the wheelbarrow, just like laughing and having she's like, oh my gosh, these cute people like pushing us. And it was just like such a nice moment, and it felt like because we really honored her care above all else, it took priority over the shots we wanted to get. We had to kind of let go of because there's an anxiety in me that's like, no, I need this shot and this shot, and like we're on a time limit if we don't get. And then I was like, you know what, no, like just prioritize her well-being right now, and that's it. And as we did that, it's just this openness happened, and we got everything we needed. So, and it was different than what we had planned, but it was actually better. So yeah, I think that's kind of like an example of when it's really worked, I think, in our favor for shooting.
That was so beautiful. Thank you, Jamie, for sharing that story. And I think I've just been reflecting a lot from what you have all been saying about how intersected well-being is when it comes to sustainable action, and like the intention behind it. It really humanizes some of these commitments and goals, because even when it comes to like having sustainability goals, like say you want to go completely plastic free or waste free, sometimes it's not possible to just like be perfect at that, and to like be able to just take a step back and be like, why am I doing this, and what am I doing this for, and really bringing in the crew and having them be involved. I think it goes a long way, and it promotes to that culture of well-being and community. And so, yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And it's also a segue to my next and last question regarding self. And it's about resilience. So, what does resilience mean to you? We're in a time of, a lot of climate disasters and a lot of things going on in the world and in politics and the news, and also weather patterns. So there's a lot of climate anxiety. How are we taking care of ourselves and each other in this rising era of climate anxiety and change?
No matter what industry you're in, you have to take care of your mental health and try to understand what your capacity is at. And if you need to take a break, take the break. Because if you don't, it's only going to further impact the impact. It's going to impact the impact that you can have as a filmmaker. You do have to take care of yourself and slow down.
In my film, What About Our Future, the youth in one of the scenes say, community is the antithesis to capitalism. And they have this whole kind of joke going on. But I really do feel building a community of people around you is really important, especially people that really understand you on a deeper level. Because for so long, I felt very isolated in climate anxiety, and also like the cognitive dissonance of having kind of a deeper understanding of what's going on, or feeling things really intensely, whether that was through an experience through ceremony or something where you get this kind of deeper sense of what's happening, or you witness, I shot a film where an earthquake hit in Ecuador. So being embedded in an experience on the front lines of a crisis, you come back and then everything's sort of operating as normal. And it's like you have to make a living and survive in a world that feels like it's dying. And then at the same time, it hasn't fully emerged what to step into. So sometimes I would feel this cognitive dissonance. So I think the more that you really understand that, and have I think it's a quote I've heard somewhere where it's like, we don't need more positive mindsets, like we need more nuanced minds and people that can hold polarity and hold the complexity. And I think that ability to, like still meet each other with respect and honor, but at the same time have different perspectives and views, that's a really difficult kind of place to be, but I think it's very beneficial. And so for me, I like to take care of myself in so many ways, like through hydration, through being shameless about resting. I teach yoga, so I do a lot of yoga, meditation, time in nature, like whatever I can do to really take care of myself to be good. And then I feel like that's what ripples out to like, your family, then your friends, then your community, and it's all those steps. So yeah, like I'm a big advocate of people just really taking care of themselves. Like,
Jamie, I feel like I've got a lot I can learn from you. I am one who burns a candle at both ends. I've a couple years ago, I was working a full-time job. I was simultaneously doing my master's. I had two young kids, and I was directing a film. And it's just like, you don't need to do it all at once, right? You need to sort of realize what your limits are and know that by taking the time to care for yourself, you can actually do everything better, right? You can attend to each of those tasks independently better. Back to your question about what resilience is, I think resilience to me means finding a way to sort of tell these impactful stories without burning out. So, Jamie, back to that point, right? Acknowledging the weight, but don't carry it alone. Pace yourself. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. Like I've said, each time, iterate, do more, build upon it. Celebrate the wins, right? No matter the scale, right? Even a small victory, maybe your film wasn't carbon neutral. That's fine. Celebrate what you did do. Maybe you shifted one person's opinion on set. Maybe you inspired someone who watched the film. Every win is a move in the right direction.
Tell the stories and work on the projects that matter to you. I think, you could still burn out working on something that you love, but it's going to kill you more if it's something that you don't really care about and you're just doing it to add it to your resume. I really can't stand when producers, tell you to be strategic about what's going to make the most money or what's going to cost the least money or what's hot right now. And just tell the stories that you want to tell.
It's hard though when you're beholden to the funding bodies who fund your projects and they've got certain expectations of, what line numbers should be and how much certain people should get paid and, what the cost per minute is. How do you juggle things like sustainability and the values and the stories you want to tell and the budgets you're given?
yeah, it seems like, sometimes the shortcut is not always the best route to take. Sometimes things take a little bit longer when you're doing it aligned with your values, but that's part of the resilience is if you stay focused and rooted in that, you might need to take a little bit of a longer route, but you have more time to think.
Love it. I think those are really, really strong words that is a nice way to end this discussion and just such an incredible conversation with the three of you. A huge thank you to you all for not only being here today and talking to us and being part of this video, but also for the exceptional leadership that you are portraying every day in your lives.
This discussion is just the beginning. Be sure to check out the Emerging Producers Guide created by Producing for the Planet. Let's keep the momentum going. Share what you've learned, apply it to your work, and let's work together to create a more sustainable film industry. Thank you for tuning in, and we can't wait to see what you create.